I am counting on your editing skills to ensure if it was like this interview and you put it out there and people are like, Jesus, will that guy just shut up? But I'm trying to give you as much as I can.
No. Everything that you're talking about, I definitely want people to hear and the fans to hear and stuff. Because I'm looking, I'm like, I can't really ask him these questions.
Right.
Because he's the dad. He knows everything.
Right. So. Andy's first was my first. I've used social media primarily as just a way to thank and acknowledge the people who work so hard, whether you want to call it work or not. I think anytime that you're spending your time on social media to promote or support my son's band and his bandmates' band is freaking amazing. I never take that for granted. I know Andy doesn't. It's not that hard for me to go in and see people saying nice things and supporting Andy, for me to go, oh, I like that, or thank you, or hey, that's really cool, or let me retweet your picture or your video or whatever it is. I've always thought that was like the least you could do for somebody. And it kind of stems back to when Andy was a kid and he used to send like letters out, because back in the day before there was MySpace, but he would send letters to people and never got a response. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't mad at those people because I figured they had their own probably published management or people that took care of that stuff. And so I just decided that when Andy ever got to that position and he moved away, that I would just kind of help him. And Amy's been doing the same thing. She does all of the fan mail by hand. And I kind of took it upon myself to try to be as reliable for the fan base to be able to get the answers to some questions that they had as I could. But now I have more time a little bit more time. I'm only working part-time, and I can see more stuff. So it's kind of fun.
I've been, doing interviews here and there. And one thing a lot of fans have mentioned, and I think it's adorable, and I'm pretty sure you know this already or assume this already. We raised the BVBarmy basically call you dad, like our dad, like you're the BVB dad, like you are dad. And so we just enjoy that so much. And like, we see how supportive you are of the band and each of the members. And then obviously Andy, of course, and which for me personally, I'm just like, this is so amazing. It warms my heart so much because like, yes, we all know celebrities and rock bands obviously have a mom and dad, and we obviously know they support them, but like to see it every day, just from especially you and Amy, it's just like, this is just amazing. Like they are so awesome. So
thank you. That's really nice of you to say. I was talking to another fan named Pat today, and on like DMs, and I was telling him that it's the funny part about all this is like a lot of times if I try to educate somebody or correct them on something that they say that's not exactly true, they will claim that I'm sticking up for Andy. Mm-hmm. But I'm not. I'm literally, I know what it's like to be in this fan base. I'm as big a fan as any, but I know what it's like to have to read ridiculous stuff on social media about the band that we all know isn't true. And there reaches a point in time where all of us have to wonder how much we have to put up with without saying something.
Right.
And so every once in a while, I'll see something that I think is so ridiculous that I'll say something and then I'll share it with other people, because my role in having a Twitter account is not to talk to Andy. It's not to talk to the other guys in the band. That's not my point. My point has never been to defend Andy. My point is there's a fan base out there who loves this band and supports this band and takes an incredible amount of crap unnecessarily and unwarranted for doing so. And when people just throw stuff out there and to try to offend members of the fan base, if they just think that that's okay and that it's never going to be responded to, that's fine. But when it is, they shouldn't be offended, is my point.
Right.
If I point out something like, we had this situation today, you probably saw it, obviously. There was
this morning,
and it wasn't a personal thing. It's just, if you're going to say, it makes me laugh to think that to see Black Veil trying to be relevant, it's such a stupid thing for somebody to say or put on Twitter that it's kind of like funny. And I know that most people in the fan base that are going to see that are going to get a kick out of it because it's so dumb. And none of us should ever feel anything other than pride that we love this band. Whether it's me as somebody's dad, or it's just me as somebody who loves the music in this band and sees the incredible talent that the guitarists have, that Jinx and Jake have, that Cece as a drummer has, that Lonny, multi-instrumentalist, now has. Mm-hmm. That's probably the thing that drives me nuts the most, is that these guys are so talented. And they are such a good band. Now, if you don't like anthemic rock, if you don't like big choruses and kind of that over-the-top thing, then that's cool. That was the kind of music I loved. So having a band in the 2000s that does that is perfect for me. And I think, based upon the communication that I see from a lot of people that are older, obviously older than you guys are, and you guys picked up on it, the younger fans picked up on it, but I see a lot of people that are like, man, that reminds me so much of X, Y, and Z band that I loved from the 80s or that time period. And I'm like, yeah. And I've made the statement, and I won't back off of it. I've actually had conversation directly with Dee Snider about this, and I've talked to some other people, including Jerry Only of the Misfits, who obviously Black Veil and Andy in particular draws a lot of influence from. And I told him, I said, those are, Twisted Sister and the Misfits were bands I listened to. And if you stuck Black Veil in that time period when those bands were in their peak, particularly Twisted Sister and bands like Bon Jovi,
right? Yes.
I would also say Def Leppard. Think about, I don't want to go off a tangent, but think about Bon Jovi and Def Leppard and how huge they were at the time that they were. And now you're younger, so you'd have to kind of go back, but people that are hearing this will know what I'm talking about. And their audience was primarily female. Mm-hmm. And back in the 80s, that wasn't something negative, according to rock and roll. It only became when Andy started in bands, and I would notice that guys, that almost the entire crowd was guys in these metal shows. And that when Black Veil would draw a lot of girls to the shows, they would just get hammered by people because the girls liked them. And I would think, girls are 50-something% of the population in the world here. So and it's not like a girl can't like hard rock. Now, I've never thought of Black Veil as heavy metal anyway. They're definitely a hard rock band.
Right.
They're heavily influenced. Their guitarists are heavily influenced by what a lot of people call metal. There's no band that's anywhere like Black Veil Brides because they're an amalgam of like 3 or 4 different styles that you never thought would fit together. No one would have thought that a kid who was raised on Social Distortion, the Misfits, the Damned, primarily the Black Veil stuff, Lords of the New Church, the Sex Pistols, all that stuff, Andy was kind of raised on that. And his vocal style fits that style of music perfect. You could picture Andy fronting the Misfits.
Yes.
Just because his vocal style is like perfect for that. Mm-hmm. And so when he was in the Black Veil Brides when he was a kid, Black Veil was much more of a punk band. They were playing songs by Social Distortion. There was a band called 69 Eyes that Andy really liked because their vocalist had a really deep voice. Mm-hmm. And they used to do some of their covers, and then they did their own original stuff. It had nothing to do with metal. Andy just happened to come across some really incredibly talented musicians in Los Angeles that loved metal. They married their styles together. And it took a while for Andy's voice to really be a genuine, true vocal for what he wanted to do. It took people a while to get used to it too. The people that hear this, that are older, they'll know that in hard rock and heavy metal, there was a certain vocal style that people expected when they would hear a hard rock band, like Ronnie James Dio, real high vocals, Rob Halford from Judas Priest. There would always be that vocal style. Andy came out and was singing like Billy Idol doing Motley Crue, people just didn't know what to do with it. But I think that's what makes him different.
He definitely has his own style, which makes him him and makes Black Veil stand out compared to other bands. And I think that's why a lot of fans are drawn to Black Veil Brides. Like when their first virtual concert, because of COVID, I think it was after we released She's Soons, I was watching it, and I live with my cousin, and she's older. She grew up, you know, with the Twisted Sister era and Motley Crue era, and she's aware of that genre of music, and so, you know, she knew I was a fan of Black Veil Brides and stuff. She was in the background, and then I think it was when Morticia Darter was playing with Jinx, just strictly acoustic and just music.
Right.
She like came over and sat down to me like, "This is your band you listen to?" I'm like, It's like, this is beautiful. Like, it just is like mixture between like Motley Crue and then like Frank Sinatra. And it's like, yeah, that's what makes them amazing. So she's like, and she's slowly been listening to them here and there. Like I catch her on like her workouts, like, who are you listening to? So
that's great. That's great.
It's just talking to other fans lately. I mean, like, they're excited. They're finally are back on the road again and stuff and touring again. And they're excited for obviously the new album. I'm like, yes, it's kind of like a suckish feeling that they postponed it, but we understand why. But we're just all excited just to hear the new album. And just talking from other fans, like, because I've been asking them, like, oh, what's your favorite album if you have one? A lot of them have been saying Wretched and Divine, which is mine. But they're like, I think the Phantom Tomorrow, it might be the #1 because they're like, the music and the story plot, the concept is just amazing, and just like hearing the lyrics and the sound, it's just like, whoa.
You know, I've heard the whole thing, luckily.
Oh, I'm sure you have. So.
Yeah, I'm fortunate in that way is that I get to hear the demos as they're being laid out, and then I get to hear like before the final mix. And Andy asks me my opinion about a lot of stuff, which is really, you know, it's an honor that he feels that way about it, that he wants me to weigh in on certain things. Even going back to when he was a kid, I was very honest with him about things and did my best not to sugarcoat things. I didn't want to be the parent who sent their kid to American Idol and the first time that somebody told them that they couldn't sing was in front of people making fun of them. You know what I mean? I wanted to, if there was a level for improvement or if there was something that needed that I thought he could do as he was a teenager that wanted to do this for a living, I weighed in on it because I had experience. I played in touring bands. I used to think I had a better voice than Andy when I, you know, compared. But Andy's voice it's his real voice now. It's his true voice. He worked really hard on it. You know, it used to be the biggest critique of Black Veil Brides was that Andy can't sing, which, you know, we would be like, yet he's still singing. I don't think you can say that anymore. But if you reach the point now, 8 albums in when Phantom of Tomorrow comes out, including the 2 Andy Black albums, as well as some EPs and other things, if you listen to them and then you listen to them acoustically and you say Andy can't sing, then you just don't want to say that he can sing. That's kind of my opinion about it.
So I know, like, obviously their first album was Restitched She's Moon, and then they remade it, and I remember comparing the two and just hearing his voice and just all the instruments, especially his voice with the headphones on. I'm just like, wow. Everyone in the group has come a long ways, and just like the difference between these two are just like, they're both amazing in their own ways. It's just the progress and the growth in between is just incredible. I
also think that the funny thing is that Vale came out. There was some negativity about the fact that Andy had been doing Andy Black, and people thought that the band was going to end. And they didn't realize that Andy did Andy Black because things were not working out in the band, and he needed to have something he could move into in the event that it couldn't be fixed.
Right.
But what I would say is that if you really go back and revisit Vale and revisit the lyrics in Vale, you understand that that was a very difficult time for Andy, was something that he thought he was going to have to end or give up or do something else. And he didn't see any way that he could continue it the way that things were at that exact time. It was very difficult time for him, you know? And if you revisit the lyrics to that, you revisit the songs, and then you listen to some of the lyrics in The Ghost of Ohio, I think that it changes the perspective that you might have on those 2 albums in particular, because you can feel the angst and the emotion that he had, which is now completely different. Andy's emotions and is now just joy and happiness, just being so thrilled that he gets to continue to do what he loves, which is he loves this band. He loves playing rock and roll. He loves being on stage and getting to play in front of hundreds of people. It's something that he never thought that would end, at least would end like that. And it didn't have to. And that's the beauty of it. You know, the fans got to continue to get music from their favorite band and see their favorite band because they were able to work it out.
Watching the Unplugged acoustic tour as they were going down the timeline, when he opened up and the band opened up about how disconnected they were.
Yeah.
It was I cried like a little girl because I'm like, I had no idea. And I'm just like, this is sad. And like, so now when I listen to Vale, it's just like kind of mix of emotions because I like it, but then I'm like, there's a backstory to it, but I'm like, I'm happy though that it's not farewell and
that's
continuing on.
That's a really good point. You have to prepare yourself to listen to that album now.
Yeah.
Because it carries so much more emotion than it would if you didn't know
exactly
the position he was in. I did, obviously, and so did Amy, and that's a true story. That story about him playing that song for the first time. We were on the ferry, the Anderson ferry, taking him back from the airport in northern Kentucky, right across the river. And he was playing that song, and I was tearing up too because I knew what it meant, and I knew that it was hard because Amy and I used to sell the merch. At the merch booth. Okay, I would not be on the stage crouching behind the drum kit doing the fog machine. You know what I mean? That Black Veil Brides, for better or worse, was as big a part of Andy growing up in our eyes. You think it's going to end, you're kind of, melancholy about it. This new album, it's everything you would want for the band when you know that everybody's on board and everybody's on the same page. You are a really good example of somebody who found the band at a relatively young age and has continued to grow as a person, and is a professional who's went through, college and everything else, and you're a professional, and you continue to love the band. I never stopped loving Aerosmith. I loved him when I was a 12-year-old in college. I never thought to myself, well, I'm going to have to give him up to prove to somebody that I'm an adult now. I just did. Now, did I love other things too? Sure. But that doesn't mean I stopped loving Kiss. Obviously, the story has already been told about Andy discovering Kiss. I'll prove to everybody I'm an adult by putting AC/DC away. If I liked it when I was a teenager and I liked it when I was in college, I'm probably going to like it because I like it, not because I'm so much more sophisticated now.
Right.
I always go back to the premise that Black Veil #1 was an emo band.
Yep.
Okay.
Got that in high school.
And the premise and that's always based upon literally whenever you read somebody say, that's a band that wants you to cut yourself and complains about how tough their lives are. Every time I see something like that, I wish I could just reach to the computer screen and give the person the old, Andy does that eyebrow thing.
Yes.
That's what I wish I could do. I just want to give him one of those.
Yes, yeah, that, like, yeah.
Andy's lyrics are uplifting. It's about overcoming things. It's about celebrating a group of people. And there's so many songs that they write and that they do that have absolutely nothing to do with quote unquote emo type of lyrics. Here's what I will say about that.
Okay.
If you ever look at any of the major rock magazines that put out a list of the top emo bands of all time, none of them ever mention Black Veil because Black Veil's not an emo band. Okay? People get mad and say, well, where's Black Veil? They're not an emo band. So the only people that think they're an emo band are people that don't really know what emo music was or is. Black Veil is a rock band. They are if anybody wants, I think Cherry said this best, they are anthemic rock. And if you grew up at the time that she and I did, you know that anthemic rock was Kiss, Bon Jovi, Wasp, Poison, you know, just go down the line. They had big hooks, big chorus. You heard them, it was like a big pump it up type of a thing, you know, it get you all fired up. That's what Black Veil is. Black Veil had accent screams in their first couple of albums that they did. The accent screams to kind of bring up emotion or whatever. Like, okay, at the end of Savior. Now that is a scream worth a scream right there.
Right.
At the end of Savior, when you don't expect that song is a ballad. And then all of a sudden you get to the end of that song and the crescendo is building up and everything else. And then he ends it. That scream. That's the, you know, and that's why I'd always tell people, I'd say, I like accent screams. I like it when it fits. I'm also happy that Lonny Eagleton is in the band, because Lonny Eagleton. He
was the glue or magic wand for all of them to come back.
Yeah, Lonny was exactly what they all needed. It's funny because it took a hardcore fan of the band who happened to be a musician in his own right, who by some luck wound up in Andy's solo band and then became great friends with Andy, who didn't even know that he was a fan of Black Veil when they became friends with him.
Right.
It took that guy to bring the band back to its, not only back, but to its best that it's ever been. Lonnie's, everybody who's ever been a fan and thought, I wonder what it would be like to be in this band, is living it.
He's living it.
Yeah, and he's such a good person. He's the perfect representative for that. He's not an asshole. He's not somebody who's excited by the fame. He's just a good musician, and he really cares about sounding good, practicing. And he says he's always practicing. He's always working on it. He wants to be perfect when in the songs and everything else. And that was missing. You know, that was definitely missing.
I'm very happy that he's there and just working with them. And I'm sure he did an amazing job with the Phantom Tomorrow album. So I'm just like,
yeah,
I'm so excited.
Yeah, he really did. So.
I'm sure your house is like the Black Veil Museum, from where Andy's room to like the first merch to their recent merch. Like that, is it a painting or a print behind you? So
this is just the dining room to get no idea of what we're looking at here.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
But, you know, there's and then over there is some more. There's another one. Oh, that might be too close to you.
No, you're good.
Yeah. And then here's another one.
Awesome.
They're all over the place. So then they're downstairs, and we keep getting more. We keep getting more and more, which is nice. I mean, you're never going to complain about that. That's always something that you should be very thankful and happy for as a parent. You know, whenever Andy has that level of sales for his records and his albums and everything, but. No, it's fun. It's fun to have all of these little tchotchkes around the house and everything else. We all support sports teams, and so I have a man cave that's all these sports things. But Andy used to laugh at me, and he'd say, "Well, one of these days, Dad, this entire man cave is going to just be all my stuff." And for a while, I said, I don't think so, Andy. But he's on a friggin' remember, he was on a magazine cover on Kerrang for like 26 out of their 52 issues one year. Yeah. And if I literally would have put every Kerrang cover in a frame and hung it downstairs, that was a feature, just the feature ones.
Yeah.
It's taking up half of a wall or more downstairs. It's probably full wall. So at some point in time, we stopped doing that, and we just started putting all that stuff, like just keeping it, collecting it. I used to go to Warped Tour because I had friends, were friends of Andy's, and I became friends with him. And whenever Warped Tour was playing in Cincinnati and Andy wasn't there on the off years, they would invite me to come see him play. So I would just go to Riverbend on my own and go see Andy's friends in their bands all day long, you know, and go side stage, hang out with them in their buses and everything else, and it was fun. You know, that's one of the nice little nuggets that you get when your kid is in the scene like that, or was in the scene like that, is that you come across some really nice people. The guys from Less Than Jake, nice guys. That JR is one of the nicest people you'd ever meet. And there was a bunch of guys like that. I really enjoyed the guy that now is in that other band. I don't know how, I can't remember the whole band name, but Ryan, who used to be the drummer for Falling in Reverse. He's a really nice guy. And I met him and talked to him when he was in Ronnie's band. You know, Ronnie's a nice guy. Mm-hmm. You know, people don't really know that, but he's a nice person and somebody that incredibly talented. Like this tour within this moment that Black Veil's going to be doing. To me, all four of the bands that are on there, in particular, obviously, thinking about in this moment, Black Veil, Dead, and I forget who the fourth band is, yeah. Raven, like that.
Yeah.
They all just seem to fit like hand to glove. Theatrical rock bands, all four. I'm
sure that concert is going to be amazing.
Yes, sir. Really, he's a really big part of the team for Black Veil.
Yes, he actually contacted me because, you know, I have a TikTok and I do some fun Black Veil Bride.
Yeah, I love TikTok, by the way. I don't know anything about TikTok.
It's okay. It's a brand new world in there.
But the only thing, but you've kind of made me like it. A couple of the videos that you did recently that were the Black Veil themed, I was like, oh, this is good. I like TikTok.
Yeah, I kind of got inspired from my friend who does a lot of she does her content in one particular thing she's interested in. Like, you know what, there's not a lot of Black Veil Brides content. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it in a fun, my way and stuff inside.
Well, that's what I liked about it, was that it wasn't about like showing videos of Andy and then playing other people's music and about how good looking he is. And it wasn't about...
Oh yeah, there's hundreds of those.
It was actually content that was fun for me to see without me feeling like,
yeah. No, I was just saying, like, he contacted me because I don't know if it was his idea or the band's idea, but like I think a lot of fans were wondering if Black Veil Brides was going to make a TikTok account just to post, like, I don't know what exactly yet, but he contacted me and asking me if, like, will you be willing to help me run it and stuff. I'm like,
oh, that would be great.
I'm just like,
that's definitely going to be your, that's going to be your in. Next thing you know, you'll be like, yeah, I can't do this, this school thing with art and everything. I won't be able to do that anymore. I'm going to be working directly for Black Veil Brides now. So, sorry, kids.
I don't know. I mean, I love teaching art, period.
Miss Campbell, are you leaving us and going on tour with Black Veil Brides? Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, yeah, Dan Tsurif he's outstanding. He's
yeah.
You know, he's been working with Blasco in that group for as long, you know, for I don't know how many years now, but as long as I can remember Andy being with Mercenary or whatever they're called now, Dan's been involved in it, and I think I've probably only seen him in person maybe a handful of times at the most in all years, but I know that he's really good at what he does, that he knows what he's doing.
Right.
And I know that Andy trusts him and really likes the partnership that they have with that agency as far as working with them. So, if he reached out to you, it's legit, and that's good. He's a good person.
So I'm just like here, like, do you want me? Because there's like other fans, I'm sure, who are better than. I'm just like, who knows?
No, okay. I think a lot of times what I said is that it's a weird thing, but they can just sense when somebody is genuine, and you're just a genuine person. That's why it's fun to talk to you. And I think
I appreciate that.
I think it's really important that we talk about how wonderful the Black Veil Brides fan base is. It's not easy to be a fan of a band that a large portion of people don't like the band, not because they don't understand the the band's music or care about the band's music, which is something that a lot of us don't necessarily like other bands, so we just kind of ignore them. But because they don't really understand why the fan base for Black Veil Brides is as loyal and dedicated to the band as the Black Veil Brides fans are. They don't get that, and so they like to criticize it. I see it on social media all the time, and they talk about the worst thing about the band is the fan base. I'd like this band if it weren't for the fans. I've seen that so many times. And there's a part of me that's like, yeah, you don't need to. If you think that the fan base that this band has is the problem for you for not liking Black Veil Brides, then you don't get it. The reason that there is a Black Veil Brides, the reason that the band is continuing to exist and continues to be able to put out music and do the things they do, the projects that they do, to the extent that they do them, is because of literally the encouragement and the support and the promotion of the band by the fans for so many years by so many fans.